VPNs, all the rage, right? You can let you have effective, as if you had your own wire and nobody else was sharing the network with you, because your data is all encrypted. And as long as it's a secure encryption algorithm, then it's as secure as if you had a dedicated leased line. So the earlier ones was SLIP, an old protocol with no confidentiality, integrity, or authentication. And point-to-point protocol replaced that and added some confidentiality, integrity, and authentication to it. PPTP was the most popular VPN protocol, and it's still used quite a lot. It was the default included with Windows networks for a long time. It might still be, and I think I saw it supported on a PVF-Sense router I set up. This is an old, very popular VPN protocol. It's no longer considered safe. There are attacks against it. L2TP is a tunneling protocol, not a VPN. It is a way to encapsulate packets so that you can transmit over another network, but it doesn't encrypt them at all. So by itself, it's just a way to move data from one location to another, but you combine it with IPsec, and IPsec provides the encryption. So this is considered the modern standard for a good VPN is L2TP, IPsec. The two together are considered quite secure. And IPsec is a very complicated encryption protocol designed for IP version 6 and backported to IP version 4. And Bruce Schneier, one of the most famous cryptographers in the world, wrote a paper about it. He said it is so complicated, it is difficult to do a strong security analysis of it, but he thinks it's pretty safe. It has encapsulation, security, payload, and authentication header, two different modes it operates in. And so you can run it, your IP, it can go host to gateway, or gateway to gateway, or host to host. Has a variety of, and so tunnel and transport mode protects the data. Tunnel mode also protects the IP header. So it's, the difference probably isn't that big for most practical purposes. And what Bruce Schneier said is, you should just use tunnel mode. This other mode shouldn't even exist. Why would you bother to use anything but the most secure version of it? SSL was the original encrypted protocol for the web. Its null versions of it are now deprecated, no longer recommended because they're not secure enough. We should all be using TLS, and everybody is. Your HTTPS connections are all using TLS, and that's on port 443. And you can have a virtual private network going over TLS, which is simpler to set up than IPsec. IPsec is annoying to set up. There's a bunch of newer protocols, like the one I'm going to use in this project I was just talking about is WireGuard. WireGuard is pretty much considered the modern, most convenient, easy VPN protocol to set up. Anyway, so remote access is a big issue. You have people that are traveling at coffee houses and they want to connect into the company server or their home network or something. So ISDN was one of the first ways to distribute internet service to people where it didn't have to go through your dial-up phone. I don't know if anybody's still using it in America. It was pretty slow. DSL is very popular. DSL sends data over a standard phone line, but it encrypts it encodes data in very subtle changes of the signal in the amplitude, the frequency, or the phase, and it adjusts the technique to match whatever gets through. So if you live close to a network switching center, it can be very fast, like 50 megabits per second. If you're further away, it gets slower and slower because it tests the signal and finds out that not too much of the signal is getting through. So there's a lot of versions of it. The most common at home is asymmetric because most people want more download speed than upload speed. Server farms, of course, want a lot of speed in both directions. So cable modems connect by broadband cable, and this is quite fast, but you can only get it in cities where you have cable TV, of course. And the same thing, by the way, is true of DSL. You can only get it in cities because you can't be more than a couple of miles away from a main switching center or you won't get enough speed to make it worth it. That's why, of course, Starlink is super popular. If you live outside a city, there really is no good broadband technique at all, and Starlink is the modern way. For TLS, the encryption backend, something like AES, TLS is actually quite complicated, but it does use AES. What TLS does is first it connects with a public key encryption method like RSA, and then it uses that only to send an AES key, and after that it just sends all the data with AES. So it uses several different encryption techniques. That's how it works. And these days, it mostly uses elliptic curve cryptography instead of RSA because it's as strong and much cheaper to run because the keys are shorter and the computation is less. It's a good question. All right. So anyway, here's an old-fashioned technique that's not bad, where a user calls to initiate the connection, then it hangs up and it calls you back at your known phone number. This way, only people can get in if their phone number's been registered. And this was good, when people would either be at work or they'd be at home, but now everybody travels. They're in coffee houses, they're in airports, so this is probably no longer practical. Caller ID is another thing. You could use the caller ID to make sure that the people calling in are actually employees. The problem is caller ID is easily forged. So this is a problem. If you're going to let people come in over the telephone, then you might be a bad guy spoofing your employees, and that's a problem. All right, remote desktop is what most people want. This is how you can remote control a machine and get a graphical desktop to control it. So our login and RSH were old systems. Modern techniques, VNC and remote desktop protocol. VNC is mostly used on Linux systems. It gives you a graphical desktop that's pretty low quality. Microsoft's remote desktop protocol lets you see the desktop of a Windows machine in good detail to where you can use it as if you were physically there. And I say this is quite effective. The problem is everybody knows, so if you expose this port directly to the internet, everyone tries to brute force their way in. And as far as I can tell, RDP does not have any capacity for two-factor authentication. Everything depends on the password, which is pretty silly, but I guess that's what you fix in Azure by having a Bastion server. I haven't tried them because they're not free, but Microsoft keeps saying you should use a Bastion server to protect your RDP, so I guess it has some more secure system, which I hope is two-factor, although I don't know. And there's other things. There's third-party tools to remote control machines. Log me in and go to my PC. Or you put an agent on the computer and it connects out. You can also have a virtual desktop infrastructure where you have a central infrastructure that is deployed to the workforce, or you can have the application virtualized, so you're just using a cloud computer. None of the data is ever on your machine. You're just viewing a cloud computer with an agent. This is what all my consulting gigs have. They have a virtual computer on Azure, and I just connect to it with a Citrix client, so I never am in direct control of any of the data. And I can only use official applications they provide, which is pretty much the Microsoft Office suite and nothing else. And you can do work on the company data, but you never have the data on your machine, so it can't be stolen by malware or anything. Screen scraping is the technique used by VNC that will packetize the graphical screen and send it back. RDP uses a different technique, which is Citrix's. Anyway, then there's instant message to talk over the internet. Internet relay chat was the original technique used for people that were sharing a same Unix server, and it rapidly got overrun with crime and malware to where it's almost never used for anything else anymore. AOL was big in the 80s. ICQ is another one for instant messaging. And now these things tended to be a security risk just because they were written badly and they had things like buffer overflow and similar vulnerabilities. Remote meeting technology is all the rage. Of course, Microsoft's is Teams. Teams is used by a lot of corporations, and other people use Zoom. Zoom is for home users and schools and stuff. It's not used by corporations because it doesn't have all the management features that Teams provides. Teams is much less reliable and more flaky, but it is used by big corporations because they want to be able to control it and log it and all that. Anyway, personal digital assistants, these were all the rage before we had smartphones. I think they're pretty much gone now. Now everybody has a smartphone. And so they all have the same problem smartphones do. If you lose your device, you might lose the data on the device. So all the data should be encrypted, and corporations put remote wipe capability so they can wipe the phone if you report it lost. The problem is, sometimes when you lose your phone, it never comes back online. For example, you've dropped it somewhere and it's really gone. Then the company doesn't get a chance to wipe it, and they really don't know if that data was stolen. That's a problem. Anyway, all right. Wireless application protocol is intended to give you secure web services. It has something called the handheld device markup language. I don't think I've ever used this, but it's out there. And WAP is the web browser for this thing, micro browser that connects to the gateway, and accesses points. Apparently it's disappeared. That's why I've never used it. It's out of date. All right. And content delivery networks are huge. I use this all the time. I use Cloudflare. This is very common. You have a server, and your server, you don't want your server to deliver all your traffic directly to your clients for two reasons. First, you don't want to pay for the bandwidth and processing for all those clients to come into your one server. And also, you don't want to expose your server to all the attacks on the internet. So you put a reverse proxy in front of it, like Cloudflare or Akamai, and this will make local copies of your page in data centers all over the world. So if people in China want to view your page, they can look at a local Chinese copy that's right near, it has fast response without having to send traffic all the way to America to see your page. That's the idea. That's what Cloudflare provides. And like I've talked to the CEO of Cloudflare many times about their security features. He says, 90% of our customers don't even care about security. They just want the content delivery. They just like the fact that it delivers the content more rapidly to customers. That's what they care about, basically availability. Anyway, but it does also block some attacks, and I was talking about that in my other classes. My server's been under attack for a few weeks, and I turned on a Cloudflare protection mode, and that filtered out enough of the attack traffic to make my server usable again. So they do provide security services in addition to just content delivery. All right, so let's take a look at 4J. All right, Switch protocol provides transport but no encryption. That's L2TP, Layer 2 Tunneling Protocol. It will tunnel to get there, but it does not provide any encryption. Which one of these is old and unsafe? PPTP is common and easy to set up, but it's not considered safe anymore. All right. Which one runs over port 3389? Remote Desktop Protocol, Microsoft's remote control, which is a branded version of Citrix. And what IM system has been used since the 80s? It's the original one. Internet relay chat, been around forever. A few old graybeards use it, but I remember one guy got so mad at everyone saying it's all just malware, he actually did a study, and he found out that 99% of all the traffic is malware and child porn and attacks and everything. There are a few people that still use it for chatting, but not very many.